I'm going to call us slowly to order, and you'll notice that we are being recorded. So we gotta mind our Parksvilles and Qualicums this morning, our P's and Q's. I thought of that one.
Done.
Okay, so we are the Finance and Operations Committee of the Whole. Our mandate is to discuss and make recommendations to the board on financial, facilities, maintenance, technology, and transportation matters with a view to environmental sustainability. And we give thanks and acknowledge that the lands on which we work, play, learn, and be are on the shared traditional territory of the Qualicum and Snanawas First Nations people. We don't have a presentation this morning, I don't think. Hi to Leslie, who's just come in, and Heather. I feel a little bit like, you know, for those of you who are older, the romper room, and I see Heather and I see, you know.
No, I want to be the Mickey Mouse Club.
Okay, I can
Peter.
sing the Mickey Mouse Club song if you want, but I won't. Peter's coming in, Jillian's coming in. I think the whole gang is here. So project updates. Oceanside Community Track.
World's worst secret.
Yeah, the world's worst kept secret. Oh, shh, don't tell anybody.
It's in the
I guess I'll start. As you all know, Parksville Council last week at their meeting, very early in the meeting actually, put $750,000 into their financial plan. And basically that gets us to the finish line for our plan of a 6-lane level track, which is very exciting. I think I was sitting at that meeting with Randy and Kim Longmire, who have been working on this project for 18 years. And I think our mouths all dropped open because the comment from the mayor was, oh, I see I've made some people very happy. So we are at a place now where we could resolve to move ahead with the building of a track. I'm curious, however, about whether Phil might want to chime in on the logistics of all of this. And I see that Julie has a question. So let's go to Julie's question first.
Okay, thanks. I'm just wondering, because I just read the article that was in the PQB News, and there seemed to be, according to the article anyway, a little bit of concern when they did allocate this money that it may not be able to go under the fund, the grant fund that they were thinking of, because it can't be for ongoing projects. I kind of agree. This is not a project that has even started. So I'm hoping it's okay, but I'm just wondering, is that a concern?
I'll give you the background on that. So there's a bit of a concern that we have contributed funds that are being held by the school district, even though we haven't really started the project yet. And I do think that it's a little, they've said that they will find the funds anyway. So that, you know, it might be a bit of juggling all the little, you know, the balls under the eggshells kind of thing. But the money is there enough, I think, that we can move forward with it. But yeah, there's a couple of details. I mean, that's one of the details. And the other detail, which is the one that I shared with Eve, is that really until those minutes are approved, there is a chance of reconsideration. But I think in light of the fact that I've sat at their meetings for months, and I don't think there's going to be a reconsideration. The vote, by the way, was there was only one counselor who opposed, and the other counselors were all in favor. So
did she say why she was opposed to it?
Did he say why he was opposed? He felt that the track had been given enough money already. So there you go. So over to Ron, and then I'm wondering if Phil wants to fill in.
So yeah, so originally behind the scenes again, when the city of Parksville, I think, and again, those who didn't have a chance to see the video online, it's good entertainment, I guess, for the city of Parksville to see the debate and to see the work that Mayor O'Brien put in, if you want, in terms of putting this on the table for discussion and kind of I won't say forcing the vote, but again, taking it out of, he took the 50,000 that was on the table, took it outside the planning document for a motion for us, if you want, to sort of respond immediately to the request of the $712,000. So behind the scenes, I've asked Kiva again. I gave her a heads up in terms of our process and what we're going to be doing in terms of moving this forward from committee to the regular board meeting next week. Should we have a motion today or support a motion today? What I asked from her was sort of a letter from the town or from the city, basically to tell us that there is a commitment of the 750. Again, it would be nice if we had a document in hand that we could put on the regular board meeting to say that the funds are now committed and that we can proceed to finish the planning and start the project, as it were. Haven't heard back from them. I know if you see the video, you can kind of see the staff and board having that discussion in terms of how are we going to present it? Where is the money coming from? Can it come from the growing communities, or should it be coming from somewhere else? And again, that's their work, not ours, clearly. At the end of the day, I would just like to see in hand a commitment for it. Also, you heard in the discussion is that we're not asking for the funds up front. We just want the commitment up front. And so hopefully within a week, we will know that, again, I've been provided, as we've heard on the broadcast, that there is a commitment, there is a motion that's been passed to support it to the tune of 750, with a recognition that the other municipalities will offset some of that 750, but otherwise the city is on the hook for the 750. That all said, as of obviously today's Parksville Qualicum news, it's out there, it's in public. I'm not going to say that they will back off on it, but it's up to the staff obviously to now work through the details of moving funds, basically the shell game of, if not this project, then let's move this project from taxes into the project of communities, growing communities kind of thing. That's going to be the shell game that's going to work in the backgrounds as they respond to can it or can it not be used, the new money, can it or can it not be used for this project. But I think clearly we're going to go forward with a motion, obviously a supportive motion today. We gave them notice, if you want, that we can do it in 18 months with the understanding that by expanding the time horizon, they had 2 years to find the money. So it's also giving us, as Phil will report out, giving us some latitude in terms of should we not be able to secure contractors in the next 4 months to do the project. It gives us some latitude to do it next summer, as it were. But anyways, I'll let Phil speak to that. But in the meantime, that's kind of the background in terms of, I won't say it's a cautionary item again, but it is recognizing that until we actually see how they're doing it, it'll make me feel better to be able to say that absolutely. But clearly, we're not going to spend any money until we actually have money in the bank. So that's always helps me sleep at night. Over to you, Bill.
Just a little update to that, because of course, being at the meeting, that was the first thing that I asked was after the meeting was would a letter be written? The letter can't be written until they accept the minutes. And so we're hung up there. And I did ask Kiva to send an email to you, Ron, and I understand she did. So that's, I think, the best we're going to get before May the 1st. If people really, really want to be cautious, we could wait until after they accept the minutes and that we get a letter in hand. Anyway, I want Phil to chime in terms of how he's been doing with contractors and stuff. So over to you, Phil.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. First of all, I would say it's really exciting to sort of get the funding in place where we can actually make the back of Bolinas in general, not just with the track. I think it's an opportune time to clean up the back of that school, the back of Winchelsea Place, and really sort of give it a little bit of a pop, because it is quite run down. And so we're going to be doing some things to incorporate, whilst we have equipment there to do the track, to try and do some other things around the back of that site and use the time wisely while it's a construction site. In regards to the project at large, and then the contractors and that sort of thing, it does allow us now to start engaging some contractors in some more meaningful discussions. And there is 2 contractors that I haven't engaged yet that are probably going to be the deciding factor as to whether this track goes ahead this year or next. And that is for drainage. The whole track depends on adequate drainage. So there's been some failures in the past with other tracks where the water hasn't been taken away from the track runoff. It's gone underneath, and it's created the track to either depress or bubble up, and that sort of thing. So we've got to get that right. And that is the one piece that would have to go out to a contractor that I'm not aware of. That would have to go out to a tender type thing. So there's 5 different components to the project. And 2 of them would go out with quotes or tenders, for lack of a better term, and that would be the synthetic material. And then the other one is the drainage system. And then depending on the synthetic materials, neither here nor there, because if we get everything completed and have an asphalt track for 6 months, it doesn't really matter until the synthetic comes in. But the drainage has to get done before we can do anything else. So if we don't have contractor availability for drainage this year, then the track will have to wait till next year. And Elaine, I know there's been some emails back and forth, and you and I chatted on Friday about potentially trying to fundraise or get donations in kind to make it an 8-lane track. And my cautionary note to this is that if there is absolutely any chance of getting this track delivered this year, like, we need to start engaging contractors and moving pretty expeditiously. And there is the chance that if you want to extend it to an 8-lane track and try to get another additional $200,000 or $300,000, it may just slow things down where next year becomes the only viable option in that regard. So that would be my tale to some of the enthusiasm out there about getting it to an 8-lane track at the moment.
Thank you for that. And I hope that you might come to our Track Society meeting, 8 o'clock on, I think it's next Monday. I can
No problem.
send you,
Yeah, send me an invite.
I'll send you an invite. Just because it'd be really nice to have your voice there.
No problem.
Saying that because there's pressure.
Yeah.
Over to Barry.
Thank you. So, a year and a half, 18 months, is that what we said?
Yeah.
That's going to be like November, December of next year, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just, want to say that, the way things go, that November, December, it's like bad time of the year. People go to Christmas. So probably be more like 20 or 21 months.
What's that for? What's that for?
Sorry, Barry, if I can, the 18-month
Clarify.
window, is, so in the discussions, Phil's come forward and basically saying, we need 4 months to build it. We can do it this year. April through October effectively is the building time. Again, wanting 2 months worth of no school traffic, as it were, with obviously needing to get ahead of that. And then obviously anticipating that come August, obviously there's going to be some landscaping, that kind of stuff for September, October. So that's the 4-month construction period. The 16-month, the year and a half that we're talking about is truly about, if not this year, and we'd have it done by, if you want, October. If not this year, then next October it would be complete. So we certainly, as we throw these values out, this 18-month window, it's in consideration of it only is going to take us, again, not really, don't quote me on this, but again, it'll only take us effectively 4 months to do it. But this allows us
Okay.
two seasons to do it effectively.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Thanks. Just a comment, Angel had a question in the chat. Will the new track facility include washrooms, change rooms? No, the current plan is that there could be access on request to the schools for meets and such like that, but this is, I have to tell you, even though Phil says it's not the Volkswagen, I think it's probably the Buick. It's certainly not the Cadillac. Fair enough, Phil?
You mean as far as the track goes, or the
As-
facilities around
As far
it?
as the facilities go.
I would say the facilities, if you look at Jack Bagley and some of the cost pressures they run into, it's a great model of they had to forego the softball net and bleachers, the back net. They forewent the softball field and the washrooms, and they delivered nice grass, sod development, pickleball courts, and now they're doing phase 2 and 3 of the projects, which
Yeah.
is the supplementary stuff. If we look at it like that and say, let's get the track, and then in the future, some of these donations might start rolling in, because you don't need $1.5 million to build washrooms or put up lights or put in bleachers. That stuff can be done phase 2, phase 3 if people want to come forward. And so I would say let's focus on the track and the track alone at this stage.
Okay, and I do want to kind of bring this to a close, but I will speak about the Track Society in a second. Eve.
And I think in Ron's example of 18 months, what he was trying to illustrate to the city was they could straddle 2 budget years. And that
Mhm.
this money wasn't necessarily upfront 750, but if you need 2 budget years to sort of sort it away and parcel it up, then that timing, takes you around, yes, 18 months, but it's a 4-month bill and can go that way. But then I would also make a recommendation that the school district proceed with the building of a 6-lane flat track on the Bolinas grounds. And a thank you to the city of Parksville for the additional funding. to do
Could
so.
we write a letter to the city of Kirksville thanking them for the,
Once we
you
see
had
it,
that?
I would wait for the letter.
wait for it.
There's nothing yet. But once we get their letter to confirm the commitment, then we can respond with a letter from the steering committee and the board, acknowledging the letter and thank you for their support and continued work with our team.
So we're okay with the resolution as he has put it there, Ron?
Yeah, so again, so
Got
I've
it.
written down school district proceed with the building of the 6-lane track.
Okay.
Was there,
Could
did I
we-
miss
could
something
we-
there, Eve?
Could we possibly just say with the building of the track as presented?
You really want? So this is opening the door for the 8, is what you're thinking?
I'm opening the door for the 8. Bear?
This is not my motion, so
I
whatever.
know it's not your motion. Bear?
I think we're in jeopardy if I'd still like it read 6-lane track, because that's all the
Okay.
data we've been dealing with. That's all the
Okay.
information and
You
scope
know
of-
what? We can adjust it if
If we
things
had a
pass.
windfall or something.
If the RDN steps up and says, yeah, we'll pay for the other.
precisely, and we're going after the RDN next, but that's the other part of this. Barry?
Yeah, I've said it before, I want to say it again. We need electric buses to go from downtown Parksville to the track. If the people are going to use it, we want them to be able to take an electric bus there every half hour and return. So there you go.
Okay, thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Okay, further to this resolution going to the board. Do we need it read again? Anybody need it read again? Not seeing any hands.
Julie.
Sorry, Julie?
Who hands?
Yeah, read it again.
Again, motion for support, yeah, school district to proceed with the building of a track.
6-lane track.
Eve wins.
Okay, 6-lane track. Thank you.
Clear? Good? All
Consent.
right. All those in favor? Okay, we've got full support. Thank you for that. A little bit more, just a tad more I want to just speak about the job of the Oceanside Community Track Society, of which I am the president. So I'll put on that hat for a second. Our job now is to provide some funding for upgrades and enhancements to the track. So that's our job. Anybody who wants to join the society can. Memberships this year are a measly $10, and we meet on Zoom. So especially any parents, Angel, I'm looking at you because you're such a good fundraiser. Carrie, I'm looking at you. You know, you can join, just let me know and we'll set you up. So that's my little piece. And we will be working with the school district. Hopefully, eventually I won't be president anymore. And we'll be working with the school district to get enhancements to their track. Thank you. Good. We shall go on then. And I'm going to turn it over for items for discussion. I'm pretty much turning this over to Ron. And I have a kind of a 45-minute window on this. So you've got a good time for discussion. If it doesn't go that long, even better. Over to you, Ron.
Perfect, thank you. So in your package, we've provided a capacity updated, and this is just as a bit of a background. This is a capacity summary that I sent to the ministry to confirm our current capacities based on what they had in their documentation when we had middle schools, and then how it's changed when we've converted these middle schools to elementaries. And so that commentary section in there is addressing how we converted a middle school at Oceanside, Springwood, and Qualicum Beach into elementaries and what sort of occurred during that time. And so that's why I'm kind of addressing it in terms of on the main floor. And again, I'm not going to read this verbatim, but again, on the main floor, how we converted some middle school classrooms into kindergarten space and the implications that it has on the capacity calculations. Same thing with the upper floors kind of thing. Again, how we were able to convert the middle school classrooms, including the locker bay area, into a classroom up there. And then likewise on a couple of the sites where we converted space underneath the stairs in the foyer area into classrooms and how that's impacted our capacities. So taking you from right to left, actually taking you from right to left, if you've got it in front of you, sorry, left to right. So Bolinas, for example, has 38 classrooms. It hasn't changed since when it was effectively the last 15 years kind of thing. No new additions, et cetera, et cetera. And because it hasn't been a reconfiguration, the 38 classrooms is still relevant. That 38 converts as a multiplier of 25 to get to the nominal capacity is what you're seeing there of 950. Likewise, the operational capacity, it doesn't use the same, the 23.3, but again, it's 25 for the operating capacity for them also, because they don't run into the issues of class sizes that can sometimes impede the capacity of a kindergarten or a primary level class. And likewise, as you can see, the student counts in 21, 22, and the projected for 23 is all mostly within that. Again, we've got some flex in that, even though we're projecting 960, and this year we're working at 965. There's obviously flex space embedded in those 38 classrooms. Sometimes gym classes are using small little areas to create an exercise room that obviously has a classroom. Obviously, our libraries that don't get counted as classrooms can sometimes be used as a learning space. Same with our labs aren't necessarily all inclusive when we count 38 classrooms. So that's why 960 works without portables obviously on these sites. And there's also Winchelsea that sometimes gets used as a sort of a swing space for some of these classes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ron.
Yep.
But could you just while we're going through these numbers, I think it might help people to define the differences between nominal and operational capacity, because oftentimes it's confusing.
Well, that's, yes, okay. And that's the number that's above. So kindergarten classes for nominal are 20 to 1 and 25 to 1 for all other classrooms. And so it's just a calculation when you get to equal Oceanside, 3K at 20 to 1 converts to 60 capacity at the nominal side. On the operating side, it's 57, which is 19 times 3 kind of thing.
I think
And-
that's what I'm asking is
And
what
you're,
is the
what's the
difference
difference?
between nominal and operational, because it can get confusing and it does make a difference sometimes down the road.
It can in the construction of them. And that's where it usually factors in when we're proposing a new build or a renovation and that kind of stuff, capacities come into the equation, obviously. And so when they build sites and they develop floor plans kind of thing, it's the capacity that they're looking at. Let me think. 10 years ago, when districts were mindful of capacity issues as they were declining in time, the 90% rule came into play, if you recall. 90%, districts had to be above 90% of their total district capacity before they could entertain a new build or a new site. I won't say that's gone off the table, because most districts in the last 10, 15 years have addressed that. They've closed sites. Any districts have had discussions on being below that 90. Again, what it's recognizing is that you've got too many seats out there and that you've got too much capacity for the number of kids you're anticipating. So they asked districts to close schools. But the pushback in all of that was a lot of schools in small remote areas were being held to account for these dwindling numbers. And so there was money put on the table for these remote funding. So, and they called it REEF, Rural Educational Enhancement Fund, I believe it's called. And so there was money put on this table to save those schools, even though they might have been sitting at 50% capacity, for example. So maybe a school that was built for 200 only had 100 kids in it, kind of thing. And so over the course of time, the narrative has kind of changed from that 90, I guess I can say. They still kind of hold you to it. And you'll see in our numbers, we're not near that. And so we, in 2014, when the district did close some sites, that's the environment that they were working towards in terms of reducing the number of surplus spaces in our schools to address the lowering or the less kids in the district, obviously. So the decisions again, the narratives changed somewhat in the past maybe 10 years kind of thing. Now what schools are being, or school districts are being asked to, which tends to be why they've backed off a little bit on the 90, but again, it's still one of those things that they hold districts to. But now that they're asking districts to come forward with a portion of the capital funding, i.e. Districts are having to recover it from local capital or recover it from operating surplus to support a portion of the build if they are asking for new sites. That tends to be the sort of the skin in the game that a district now has to give up. We're not going down that road by any means, and certainly we have the right amount of capacity in our district, as I'm trying to illustrate here, to manage the kids that we have. As we've talked about over obviously this budget cycle and previous budget cycle, we're not increasing in any great way. Any issues that are coming to us are maybe addressable in the form of catchment changes. Certainly we're not entertaining portables to address it, but that would be the next thing beyond what we do within our schools, and bringing back unused spaces into the instruction realm. We would be asked to find space or move the kids around via boundary changes, and so we address that with Springwood. And likewise, then after all of those things have been tried, then you can go after additional, whether it be an addition to an existing school or a new school once you've acquired the land. So really, this is about just sort of making it evident anyways, and again, that we're not crushing, sorry, we don't have a lack of space right now. We have the space, we have the room. There may be still some juggling that we need to do in terms of if we feel more pressure at Springwood, but by the looks of the numbers and the enrollments, we're doing okay with it. That's the only pressure area. But that again, so that's really that's the context to which this is coming forward. Really to get us all on the same page in terms of what's behind the scenes in terms of, I'm not answering your question, Julie, to be honest, because nominal and operating, I'm not sure what the ministry uses either or for. Generally speaking, the nominal capacity is what we build to, is what the facility is built for. So if you do propose a new site, and you're basically looking at, okay, what is the area you're placing it? And this is our known projections for that site. You're building it to a nominal capacity. I don't know, again, and this is just me having not built a site in many years, I'm not sure how the ministry uses these two capacities anymore.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's the nominal capacity that the planning departments are using to address how many seats do you need, and if they're in an elementary setting, how many in the K section, how many in the 1 to 7 or 8 or 9, depending on your how you've done your schooling, if you've got middle and that kind of stuff. And then obviously at 25 to 1, obviously, is just a ballpark figure, recognizing that many secondary schools have classes that are 21 or 19, depending on where they draw the line on offering a course. Some, as we know, some secondary courses are around 32, depending if they're music or the language in the collective agreement kind of thing. So it is really just a rule of thumb that addresses the capacity for planning purposes. What the ministry does with the operating, as I said, I'm not sure. It's the nominal that we would build to, and it's the nominal that kind of addresses that capacity issue of 90%.
Okay, so in the chat, for people who really want to get it deeper into this, Julie has put the definition for nominal and operating capacity. I'm going to go to Julie, then Matt, then Barry, and then I'm putting myself on the speakers list. Julie.
Okay, thanks for all that, Ron. I guess why I'm just sort of bringing it up, because I feel like our conversations may very well turn at some point very quickly here to childcare spaces in our school. It was, and you're quite right, during our time of reconfiguration, nominal versus operating was a very hot button topic. And I feel like it may come into play again when we are talking about those childcare spaces. So I just wanted to try and nail that down and keep that in the back of our heads. But because I think we have written a letter to the government, I believe we did, asking that childcare spaces be included in the capacity numbers. So I just wanted to throw that out there again for everyone.
Great, thanks a lot, Julie. On to Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Julie, for highlighting the childcare piece. Something that Ron mentioned that I guess I'll differ in opinion on is the lack, we don't have a lack of space. And I would, in my opinion, say that we do have a lack of space in our schools. Many teachers are sharing classrooms. Prep time is shared. So these are shared spaces, washroom spaces in schools, because we're looking at LGBTQ sort of washrooms and gender neutral washrooms. And so I would disagree respectfully that there is a lack of space. And I mean, I would look at for a 960 as an overcapacity to the school. And so I'd be concerned with that. And I know some of the additional classrooms that have been put in elementary schools, they've taken up space. And that is now a lack of space. I think we all could
imagine ourselves living in a 400 square foot basement suite and then living in 1,000 square foot basement suite. They both provide the same purpose. However, one is definitely, possibly, I would argue, better on your soul than the other. So, so lack of space. I think we do have a lack of space, and very concerned about childcare moving forward. The other piece that I just would like, I don't know what WW refers to in defined instruction space. And another question I would have is Springwood, if I'm reading it right, I'm not sure what SE stands for, but a computer, I'm thinking that's possibly a computer lab, and there's not been a computer lab there for 6 years or 7 years. And so I'm concerned that possibly some of these other non-instructional spaces are listed on this document are non-existent as we speak right now. So if I could get some clarification on that, Ron,
Yep.
I'd appreciate that.
Over to
WW
you,
is
Ron.
woodwork. WW is the woodwork room.
Okay.
And on the daycare side, and absolutely, I recognize that this isn't perfect by any means. As best I could, kind of thing. Again, this wasn't done with any kind of a facility audit in mind. It was really just to open the discussion on what goes into the planning aspects, what goes into the definition of an instruction space versus non-instruction space. So yes, absolutely, this is by no means the end of the editing of it. Daycare, again, absolutely good, fair point. Daycares are now starting to, with the introduction of obviously the childcare to the education mandate, you're definitely getting more and more pushback from school, including letters from our own board, asking for how to address the daycare space inside a site. And so with new builds, I believe, with new builds, you just sort of, you take it out of the instruction side of things kind of thing, and you say, okay, here's a space for daycare, and it doesn't get included in the instructional capacity. For those that are building space, and again, what I've done for Qualicum Beach, which does have a daycare, is when I provided it to the ministry, I took that space out of the instructional capacity, and they got it. Sorry, the ministry understood that when I said, okay, we actually have a site on, we have a room dedicated for daycare on that site, and it doesn't get included in the instructional capacity. And that's actually what you want to happen. You don't want the daycare to be included in the instructional space, because then they'll force you to remove that daycare should you need the space. So if you take it out of the instructional capacity, you're not obligated to take it out, if
Okay.
that helps.
Matt, do you have more?
No, I think, so I guess what I'm hearing is that this template will be adjusted in terms of the other non-instructional spaces.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I just got a nod from Ron.
Okay. Thank you.
Barry, and then I note that Eve has something in chat that certainly trustees should look at. Bear.
Well, I just remember walking down the hallways of Qualicum Secondary, and it's more like a school of fish than a school. It's crowded. And what I'm curious about is when you got, say, a middle school like Oceanside, and it's built for a certain amount of kids, and then you convert it to an elementary school, how does that change the amount of class the size of the classes? Because obviously a class full of grade 8 kids is going to take up a lot of room compared to a class of grade 3 kids, although the grade 8 kids are more inclined to sit at a desk than grade 3 kids running around. So what did that do to the capacities? Does it change, or offhand, Ron?
Well, I was actually just pulling up Julie's area standards page, and it does talk about core space for elementary, average capacities, and that kind of stuff. It doesn't really impact. Clearly, we didn't rebuild the classrooms on account of changing from middle to elementary. When they build new, kindergartens tend to be a larger classroom. Okay, there's more equipment, there's more play space. There's often access to a bathroom, which is why I've made the comment in these things. There's no attached bathroom. So there's often in a purpose-built kindergarten, the room is bigger and there tends to be a fairly close bathroom. And sometimes there's more sinks, that kind of nature. And then strangely enough, as the kids get bigger, the classrooms get smaller is really what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Until you get to obviously whether it's lab space or woodworking rooms and those sorts of things, obviously are built to accommodate the equipment that they have in them. Same with kitchen, or not kitchens, but home economics, if it's still called that. Those sorts of rooms have a larger square footage, obviously, but certainly when you convert a middle to an elementary, you're not changing the size or the footprint of the classrooms. You're just basically indicating that, okay, because it's being used as a kindergarten class, the capacity diminishes as a result. So so instead of being rated at 25-1, it's 20-1 in that
Yeah,
case.
kids run around a lot more. They
What's
need
that?
more. They run around a lot more
Yeah.
than grade 8 kids.
Yeah. So you lose capacity when you convert them, but again, it's not changing the footprint of the room itself.
Great. Okay, so I was on the speakers list as well. And in thumbing through some of my older documents, and I said this to Ron, we've got to meet on these. I came across a document from January 22nd, 2019. And it's a bit of an aspirational document. So I think it came out of maybe a board retreat that we'd done where we talked about what the right size of our school is and stuff like schools are and things like that. So it's interesting. And I think what I would like to do is I'll talk to Ron about this, and we might look at these things from the finance and operations side. Just to run through things, this is board issues for board consideration on school size. And we said that we wanted to stay within a range of school sizes and not go beyond a certain size, which was right size, from somewhere around elementary schools around 300 to 400, and high schools more. Grade configurations, district programs were on this list, catchment areas, maintaining small neighborhood schools, specialty spaces, which is something that I support, as well as keeping our exploratories, community partnerships, current lease spaces, modular buildings, new community programming, adding space with ministry funding, and environmental sustainability. So I will speak with Ron about that, and we might be able to reissue this and start working through this list as well. This was a discussion topic. We don't need to have anything out of it, but it's certainly a place that we need to continue our discussion in further meetings. Anything more before we move on to the next topic? Okay, Ron, you've got now 15 minutes.
Okay, clicking the wrong button here. Off mute and off and on video. So bus pass and fees. So we brought this forward last year. We had the general discussion in terms of bus passes and the wonder about reframing or increasing the cost. So currently what we have, we charge $125 per year for our courtesy riders. And in the big scheme of things, when you compete or when you start looking at some of the numbers against, and I think I shared this before, in some of the lower mainland school districts, they can be charging anywhere between $250 a year to $400 a year. And I know it continues to be sort of a review for certain school districts. I know Kelowna School District or Central Okanagan 23 have it back on their for discussion again this year to move the price up to $400 a year. And again, that's about $40 a month. And again, historically, we took the price for in-catchment riders. We made it zero because of the transportation fund. So we haven't been charging in-catchment kids for a number of years for good reason, for the ministry's funding. We have maintained the $125 for the courtesy riders as an annual bus pass cost for about 15 years now, if I was going back. And I'm not actually asking us to raise that price as we review our fees. What I'm asking is that we implement an application fee for all bus passes of about $25. And the rationale would be we've introduced last year, so not this year, but last year, we introduced the Zonar bus pass. And there's a cost to obviously implementing it. And what it allows obviously is us not to have to necessarily hand out bus passes every year or paper copies and worry about lost ones, but it allows students to actually swipe on and swipe off a bus. So we introduced that 2 years ago. This year, as our director of operations has talked about, is introducing a routing software that will allow us to make our routes more efficient. Obviously, as we've all heard, that our bus drivers, our staffing is, we don't have a lot of spares, and so it's making sure that we've got all routes that can be, if they were to be canceled because of a lack of staffing, not to say that we're not trying to get staffing, but in the event of being able to cancel buses, it's fraught with some issues in terms of how which buses we cancel in the morning versus in the afternoon, because they're not necessarily a mirror image of one another. The routes aren't. And so with the introduction of the routing software, it'll allow us obviously to make sure that we've got efficient routes, that we can be responsive in terms of our planning and being able to make the routes make sense when it comes to getting the right drivers for the right routes, kind of thing. But as we set up for that, and I guess this is really what it amounts to, is as we set up for the routing software to be introduced over the course of next year, should this pass through the budget, it means we need to sort of clarify how many users are in our system, how many riders are in our system. And I say that because what we've sold in bus passes or given away in bus passes is not necessarily the number of individuals that are riding our buses. So just looking at our numbers currently right now, we have about 1,800 students that are on various routes. So we've got about 22 routes with about 1,800 kids identified as riding those buses. In reality, though, probably most of those buses are about 80% to capacity or 75 to capacity, based on they sign up for a pass but haven't been using it, kind of thing. So we have no way necessarily of confirming who's using them on any given time. And certainly the Zonar will help us to track that. The routing software will support a little bit more diagnostics in terms of who's riding and therefore capacities, if they're running at 70% or 90% kind of thing. But one way that districts are sort of looking at is, in order to confirm a parent or a child's want for a pass and the using of the pass, is charging of an application fee of about $25 is where a couple of districts are going down the road for. And again, the recommendation generally is that all riders or all families will be required to pay a $25 application fee. And that will sort of, or the intention is to filter out those that just want it just because, in the event of them needing it on a rainy day or whatever. So it helps to sort of get us to the position of saying, okay, now assuming some will drop off. So instead of 1,800 riders, maybe we'll have a more accurate number of 1,600 riders kind of thing, because maybe 200 families said, okay, I actually don't want to pay the fee, and because I haven't used it all year. And therefore it gives us a better estimate in terms of the actual number of committed riders that are in the system, so that we can build the routes according to the actual riders, as opposed to the wanted riders. Or, okay, I'm not expressing it well, but again, those that are basically raising their hand and saying, yeah, I'll take a pass. I may not use it, but I want to pass anyways. Certainly the courtesy riders who are being asked to pay the $125 a year, I guess we can kind of confirm that they would be riding the bus, but it's the non-courtesy riders that there's a tendency to take a pass but not use it. And so hopefully the 25, if should we go forward on this application fee, would filter out some of those seats, if you want, and allow us to actually get a better idea of how many people actually need the buses, as opposed to just want to confirm that they've got a seat in the event of them wanting to raise their hand. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. I'll open it up in a second, but
Okay.
that's the nuts and bolts of why we're asking for a registration or an application fee on these things, is to better address and better plan on the routes that are going forward for next year and the year after. Introduction of the routing software that will help us, again, better articulate the buses and maybe accommodate better route, better stops and better, safer stops and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'll leave it at that and
Okay,
open it
so
from here.
basically what you're talking about is rationalizing the system. So,
Thank you. Yes.
yeah, so over to Carol, then I've got Phil, then I've got Eve. And then I want to bring it to a close. Oh, and we got a question from Angel. How many passes do we give away, not to courtesy riders who pay for their passes? So we'll answer,
So-
maybe we can answer that one right away here.
Well, all other passes are given away if you want. So non-courtesy riders are given a pass if they ask for one, if they sign up for one. So again, it's recognizing that they're in catchment, but beyond the walk distance. They are
Okay.
given, yeah.
Okay, great. Over to Carol, Phil, Eve, and then Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification of what a courtesy rider was. I get the encatchment, but yeah, can somebody explain to me what a courtesy rider would be?
Courtesy rider are people
Off-limits.
who are choosing to be out, to go to a school outside their catchment, and that includes specialty programs such as French immersion. Fair enough?
And we have seats,
outside the walk
and
limit.
and we have seats available to take them.
Right. And outside their walk area, as Eve said. Okay, Phil.
Yeah, two things to add. One is, to dovetail onto Ron with the bus routing software. Currently, the bus drivers use a piece of paper, and if we have a sick call and we get someone come in, we don't have turn-by-turn instructions with GPS or anything, and they miss stops, and they have to do it off the back of a cue card, and they may have never driven the route before. And so we're investing in the busing department to make it seamless for the staff that do it, but that takes money. Secondly, and that's where, some of this would go to as well. Secondly, to Ron's point, is we see a lot of people in catchment just apply for a bus pass for that rainy day, and they may use it twice a month or twice a year, and they tie up capacity that is for people that really need it. And so our numbers on the books to what's actually in the bus never really correlates, and it makes it very, very difficult for us to plan. So that's another reason why creating some skin in the game, I think, is helpful. That's it.
Okay, great, thank you. Eve?
Yeah, on Angel's question, I think where she was headed was and maybe Phil can answer, how many courtesy bus passes have we got out there?
That's a good question.
We've got 1,800 kids riding. Would you say we have
About 400.
400?
And honestly, I'm looking at the money that we've received. So we've received about 50,000 in bus pass
Fees.
contra fees. Divide that by the 125, I get 400.
Okay, good.
Okay. So.
Phil, did you have something else?
Yep, just for clarification then, the application fee of $25 would be, I think I heard you say, Ron, per family, or is it per student?
Probably per student. But again, I'm not locked in on how we kind of deal with it, because absolutely, if there's if it's per family, that might be easier on a family. I don't deny that. I guess my thoughts are really about the introduction of an application fee.
Okay, then if you do the math,
And then
and
we can tailor it accordingly.
per student then would put our bus fee to 150
For courtesy and 25
or.
for
Yeah, I
in
think
cash.
you can't, I don't think you can go down the family route.
I don't think so either.
It won't give you the numbers that Phil's looking at or who gets on and off and things like that. So I think just.
Yeah, I'd prefer,
overall, per
absolutely, per pass.
application, per student, and then it's either 25 or 150.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And just to clarify, my thought about this is not a policy decision. So this would be kind of a
Operations.
discussion for operations. So that's where we're at here. Julie.
Thank you. I had a question and then a comment. Just how much is this Zoner software and getting it up and running? How much is that going to cost?
That's
Yep.
probably Phil.
Yeah, so we've actually got Zonar at the moment, and all that is busing, swiping on and off. The Traversa system that we're moving towards is $100,000 year one, $100,000 year two, and then 28,000 every year after that for ongoing subscription and that sort of stuff.
Okay, and Julie had,
Okay,
Something-
and so here's my comment. I am concerned again about a fee that would be coming up. We are in inflationary times. Our families are really, really hard hit, particularly if you have 2, 3, or 4 kids in the system. This would be a lot. The government has had a one-time funding for supplies and things like that. That's off the board now. So all of these fees and service monies that fall on parents is back into play. And so I'm really concerned, that we would slap another one on there. If we were considering something like this, I would like to give it like a year's heads up and have education and say, well, this is what the problem is. Here's the struggle we're having. This is what it's costing us, and give people the opportunity to actually understand what our challenges are and have them make the decisions themselves rather than slapping more and more fees on things. This Traversa software is pretty pricey, 100,000, and then 28,000. These fees are not going to cover that by any long shot anyway. So I don't think that's a way of covering those costs because it doesn't even come near it anyway. So to me, I wouldn't do it. And it's just one more financial burden to our families that I can't see right now. Thank you.
okay, Barry, and then I've got a comment.
Okay, so with this new software, you're telling me that we could have anybody that has a bus driver's license could get in that bus and drive it, do those routes, because it would be, it'd be like using your GPS on your phone or something for that. Is that what you said, Phil?
Correct. Turn by turn instructions on an iPad.
Great. Let's have Peter Jory do when he needs to. We could have the superintendent doing the bus route, right? I mean, he could be there.
I
All
think
four.
you have to have some air brakes.
Class 5.
Oh, air brake ticket. I'm joking. Anyway, yeah.
Just a comment. I'm wondering, given Julie's hesitation here and possibly other trustees and parents and so on and so forth. Has this been rolled into our budget discussion at all, Ron?
It has not, in the sense of, we haven't, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, the revenues will be the revenues kind of thing. I haven't factored this into a revenue item by any means. It's not the work that we've done on the budget is not contingent on this by any means. I think that's why I broached it this time last year in terms of bringing it to finance and ops on the wonder of increasing the rates at that time. And certainly there was hesitation on a trustee or two at that time that said, no, not yet, maybe later. So here we are, maybe later. And again, it's really on the premise of the planning for the transportation department. It's really addressing us getting a better understanding of who rides the bus, how many buses do we need? And again, this really isn't about reducing the routes, it's just making them more efficient because as we've heard, with the staffing shortage for the bus drivers among, again, and not just bus drivers, but across the board, but the impact that it has had on our bus drivers is the fact that we've actually had to cancel routes this year, and we've never had to do that in the past. Generally speaking, we've had enough spares that we could call up. We've had mechanics that we've been able to utilize as support. We've had a dispatcher that we were able to utilize as a support, again, in the event of a driver not being available.
Mhm.
We are kind of in unprecedented times. And again, we're not alone in this. Every district in the province and nationally is facing the same things and they're addressing it currently, as we are, by canceling routes. The problem with our cancellation of routes is because like I said, the AM and PM routes aren't mirrored. So if I drive, so hopefully you get the idea. They're not mirrored so that when we cancel a route in the morning and it's impacting these kids, the afternoon route is potentially impacting a different set of kids.
Right.
And so it means we can get you to school, but we can't get you home,
Mhm.
or we can get you home from school, but we can't get you to school. And so it's creating this whole issue of, obviously, in a perfect world, we would have enough bus drivers, but in the event of us not having enough bus drivers, it's creating this world of now what do we do?
I guess my question is a process question. I wonder if it's something that we could raise at our budget discussion tomorrow and just get some feedback from some of our parents who might be at that meeting in terms of Julie's concern. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, like I said, we're not locked in anyone. This is really just amounting to trying to address how many kids need bus passes. It's answering that question. And in a perfect world, only kids that required a bus pass would apply for one.
Yeah, but that's not the world.
But that's not the world we're living in, and that's not. And so, so no matter what we do in terms of trying to run a bus route, no different than, and again, I hate to use like in flights and whatnot. When airlines are addressing flights, they expect that 100% of this, 110 of the seats sold,
Right.
100 will fill the plane. We're not going down that road, but short of running our buses at 80% capacity at any given time, it means we really can't plan around taking on new courtesy riders kind of thing, and being able to open our doors, our bus doors, to courtesy riders. Because again, in a perfect world, if in fact we knew that we were running at 80%, we would be able to support another 20% of courtesy riders on the bus. So there is an element of the eligible versus the ineligible, aka courtesy riders. It will allow us to support more parents as courtesy riders.
Right.
If we knew exactly how many eligible riders there were.
Okay.
And so it is trying to address that issue too. And again, this isn't about reducing the routes. it's just making them more efficient for all families and all students in our system.
Yes, and Angel says, I believe courtesy riders include children in programs of choice. Yes, that's true. Eve, Carrie, and then we are running low on time, you guys. So let's get on to the next thing if we can.
Okay, I just, to sort of just add some context to this, I think this is pretty reasonable and pretty, compared to 400 something a month with Central Okanagan is going to, that's $6 a run for these kids in a day, and that's a Starbucks coffee.
Okay, for those who can afford Starbucks coffee. Carrie.
Just a thought. I like the conversations. I like all the thoughts and ideas you guys are having going back and forth, and it's not just one thing. One thought is if you were charging some sort of administration fee up front, is there a way that halfway through the year, if they did show that they were the ones who actually were going to use the bus pass every day, that they could get their funds back? Get their funds back. But if you were somebody who paid for it and just didn't use it, well, then that's great. We kept your money.
Okay, so let's let that one just sort of float in the air as an idea. And thank you, Carrie. And I'm going to move on. We have one more item for discussion, and then information items, and then future topics, which will probably take a discussion too. So we're running a little beyond the time I wanted to. Over to you, Ron, for budget plan.
Actually, each of the next three aren't all that
Good.
long discussions. So the budget plan was really about next steps. Obviously, there's going to be a special board meeting tomorrow, Tuesday. Somebody have the time handy?
I think it's 6.
Yeah,
Not sure.
Yep.
Yes, 6 o'clock tomorrow is the special board meeting. We're going to go over the budget with the understanding that should there be an appetite, I'll bring forward the documents for the regular board meeting the following Tuesday, which is at 6 o'clock on the 25th. And again, for many of you that have seen the stakeholders discussions, it won't be much different than that, but absolutely, you're all welcome to attend tomorrow night. It's really about putting before the board the response to the budget deficit, as it were, or the funding shortfall. And so tomorrow's meeting will sort of take it to the board for consideration so that I can behind the scenes have a week to supply the board with the final documentation. That's the plan, again, recognizing that we have until the end of June to submit a budget to the ministry. Last year, the board chose to wait till May to pass their budget, and that's perfectly fine. Again, just keeping it in front of the board in the event that they do want to pass it on Tuesday, the following Tuesday. That's the plan. That's it.
But Julie has something in chat around child poverty rate to remind us, and people can read that. Yeah. Thanks, Julie. And thanks, Ron. And over to you, Ron, for the Q3 financial summary, which.
So hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, does it go to the board? It does not, right?
I think we've been including it as part of, honestly, it gets included. If nothing else, it'll get included with the budget package.
That's what I think.
So it'll just be part and parcel of here's where we're at today, and not today, but as of March 31st, for context, as we give the board the budget documents on how things have changed. But that way it keeps it consistent in terms of here's the former documentation, here's what it's going to look like should you pass the budget in 4/23/24 kind of thing. So it will form.
Interrupt you here because I noticed that Matt had his hand up, and I wonder if it's on the last topic or on this one, Matt. Oh.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. I just have one question. I'm just curious what line item on this financial summary represents the cost of the programs like Zonar or the analytics program, Insight, attendance programs, possibly district-wide assessments and so forth. I'm just curious if there's a line item. I don't know where that's represented in this document.
Okay, I'm going to send it back to Ron, and maybe you can include that in your discussion, Ron.
Services.
Okay, there's the
Great.
answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what, and again, and I'm being abrupt, but I don't mean to, I'm just sort of giving you the response. What it amounts to is we've got various licensing costs, and I think that's what you're kind of referring to, licensing costs, testing costs. I'm trying to think of what else you included in that, but certainly the Zonar is licensing and it would fall within operations services. Likewise, assessments would fall under special ed services. And so at the object level, it would be included in services.
In
and at-
supplies and services, you say?
No, just services, because it's
Under
something that
supplies and services.
there's a line item, it's under supplies and services,
Yeah.
but there's a separate category called services, which is different from supplies, utilities, insurance, dues and fees, rentals, and training. So yeah, long story short, within the object area, it's being reported under services, under supplies and services. And then under the, when you're looking at the other document where it's by program, it would be embedded in the program that is generally supplying the service. So again, so if it's assessments, it would generally be under special ed. If it's an operations cost, it would be under operations. And so there's a couple of softwares that they have for that. Or it might be embedded in transportation administration if it's Zonar specific. So again, depending on which program is covering the cost of the licensing or assessment, it will show up under one of those identified programs.
Okay. Anything more on the financial summary? And thank you for acknowledging that there are two parts to this, that the breakdown by function is on one page and the general breakdown is on the other page. Anything else?
I don't think and again, because it's been out in the agenda, if there's any questions, my normal narrative is all about recognizing that we are 70% of our educational year and we are 75% of our operational year. So again, you've heard me say this ad nauseum, and I don't necessarily need to say it again, but again, that's the premise of how I look at these costs. Teachers, for example, is generally all fixed within the 10-year cycle. So 70.8% versus 71.2% this time last year. I'm comfortable with. When it comes to educational assistance, the same deal. They're within the context of recognizing that there's also, for support staff, the timing of some months have 2 pay periods, some months have 3 pay periods because they're paid on a 2-week cycle. So again, I just go right down to the bottom line and I see the 72.6 as opposed to 72.4. That gives me comfort to know that we're tracking where we have been over the course of the last year. And to be honest, I've got it for a couple of years out. Same thing on the on the other page kind of thing. I'm looking at educational areas that are around the 72% mark, 70% mark. I'm comfortable with that. Operations are running around 75%, and I can see that there's rationale as I've dove into the numbers to see why some things are high. And again, sometimes it's I'm going to use example of governance. 2 things that obviously the trustee elections obviously was a $60,000 hit, a one-time hit. It's not spread out over the year. And so that gets embedded in that. I'm just using this as an example, is the BCSTA fees that come out at the beginning of the summer or middle of the summer anyways. And so it's a one-time hit that doesn't get felt over the course of the year kind of thing. So sometimes, depending on the timing of these expenditures, they may skew that percentage of budget. But as long as I can sort of look behind that and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get that. So
And I think
that's my comfort level.
Yeah, trustees who have been around for a while, I know when these documents come out, I just kind of go, oh yeah, there's this and there's that. So thank you, Ron. Thank you. And thank you for saying that you feel comfortable with it, because that's always a clue. Any other comments on this? In terms of process, then this will not go to the board. We don't need a recommendation at this point?
No
Okay, good.
Yeah, if it goes to the board meeting package, it'll just be for information.
Okay, good. And then the final information item, capital supported projects. And you've got that well laid out, and I do believe that this needs a recommendation. Is that correct?
No, this was
Oh,
on,
okay.
sorry, this was on March's as a late as an addendum, as a late addition on the March board package. So it was included in there. It didn't go through finance, which is why I'm kind of adding it to the finance this
Thank
time.
you.
In the event if there wants to be, or if there is a need to have any further discussion, maybe Phil can kind of lay out what's happening behind the scenes for some of these projects. But it really was, boards passed it, the boards basically received information from the ministry to say, these are the projects that are being supported. So we threw it in the March budget so that we could get the bylaw going and sent back to the ministry to get the money flowing. But it was included in finance and ops today so that if there was further discussion wanted, we could have it.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Phil, do you want to chime in on this at all, or are we just good to go?
I mean, I think we're good to go. The only thing I would add in is that it was exciting to get the approval to move forward with inquiring about a rebuild at False Bay. So that work goes on this year with some inquiries about that and some designs, and we price it up, and then we can see how we can do next year on that. That's pretty exciting. Nothing else.
Yeah, I was gonna say it includes False Bay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
and I'm just going to quickly throw in here because again, it's worth noting the sorry, Chair.
Okay.
The Arrowview Elementary, they've upped the value for these things. So it used to be that it was about 95,000 for a standard playground and 110 for an accessibility playground equipment. So they've actually, and it's not because the costs have gone up all that greatly, but certainly they're with the accessibility, there's always recognizing for pathways, sidewalks that lead up to it, ramps that lead up to it, special consideration in the playground itself. But certainly they've recognized that many districts are wanting nicer equipment, I guess, or more extensive equipment. And so the money is going a little bit, so they've added value. So I think last, when we built, check me here, but I think it was Nanoose was our last build. I think they, yeah.
That was
so I think,
165.
yeah, it was 165. So there's an additional 30,000 in the budget, obviously, that they've added to recognize not just obviously the supply, or sorry, the inflationary, but also just the wonder on getting more for the money. So
Yay for
again,
them.
just for note, yeah.
Yeah, and just quickly on that, Ron, because you're spot on, is typically when we did Nanoose, for example, which was before my time, we spend all the money on the equipment, the playground surround, and the softball, and there's no accessibility parts, and then we eat doing all those things out of our maintenance budget or AFG. And so with that kick up in funding, when we do Arrowview this year, we're able to actually include all those things, build some steps in there on the hill, and do all those things as part of the project as well. So it's really nice.
Great. Over to Eve.
Yeah, and this is really to Angel. This goes to your PAC question the other day. This is the attempt by government to make sure PACs aren't fundraising for playground equipment. We go through the cycle. It isn't every school every year or anything by that stretch of the imagination, but this is an attempt by government. And they probably were into year 5 or 6 of playground supplementary funding being available to schools.
Oh, did my little finger go around like this? We'll take whatever we can get. Yeah. So future topics. After the discussion around French Creek at the board meeting, of course, many of us heard feedback. And I was kind of considering that it'd be a really great idea if we can find the time to schedule a meeting where all of us, including parents, whoever wants to come, basically get to go around, and Carol wanted to see these facilities as well, get to go around, take a look, particularly this year at our facilities that are rentals. And the other thing that that somebody talked to me about, Sherry talked to me about the last time I was into the board office, is there's a whole bunch of people that want to go and see False Bay. And why not, right? So if we can find a time, and I don't know in terms of process, whether we should just shuffle this off to Karen to try and find a time. I'd love to do it, and I don't know if other people would or you know, but whatever. I thought I'd throw it out. Barry.
Well, being an ex-Lasketian, we have to be careful of the ferry, you know, with
Just
limited ferry space and stuff. So that's a consideration. Let them know we're coming.
Either that or we take our own boat over. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it depends on how many people and what the weather's like and stuff like that. So,
And cost.
yeah.
Any other comments, questions, ideas? Phil?
Yeah, is this just about the visits, or is this just closing up the meeting and I can raise something else?
No, it's about the visits. We need to make a decision.
Okay, I don't have anything about that, sorry.
And we don't typically add to the agenda, so better be good. Eve,
No, I was thinking, let's visit Parksville Elementary, have the meeting at Parksville L. It's probably easy to get a space, a room and things like that. And why don't we start with Parksville Elementary? You did Qualicum Commons, I believe, a while back.
no, and the stakeholders didn't do Qualicum Commons. I'm talking about all of us, right?
Yeah, I know. So if we don't, then let's go to Qualicum Commons and then go to Parksville L. Next two meetings off-site.
We've got quite an agenda for the next two meetings, but we could do that. Why don't we try that? Ron, do you think that that's possible, that we could do them on site at our two different?
It gets us to there. Yeah, absolutely. We'll, because we can find space, I'm sure. We can, again, just set ourselves up.
And so
in
what we
one of the
could do
rooms.
is arrange maybe a walk around for people who are interested before the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
come early, yeah.
because we start our meetings at 10:30 and heck, we're not doing anything at 10 o'clock, right, Eve?
So Craig Street first, is that what I heard?
Either Craig Street or Qualcomm, whichever one you want to do. And then let's arrange a time to get over to Laskety. I'm thinking the spring fling time would be great too. So
Way too expensive to rent a boat.
probably, unless there's 100 of us, and then we won't fit.
Does Helijet fly?
Good.
We have, Angel says we have a boat. No, we would have to rent one, Angel. Okay, we are at 11:53. I think we've got a plan for the next two meetings anyway, and we'll keep talking about Laskety. Maybe a whole bunch of us will just go over on our own. In the interim, I do liaise over there. I haven't been over for quite a while, and I intend to get over again and find out when their spring party is. And I always invite everybody to come to the spring party because it's fun. Hey, Bear.
It's fun.
Yeah. Our next meeting would normally be May 15th. It sounds like it's going to be in person on a site. So that'll be a little different. And okay, Phil, what you got?
Sorry, I just wanted, it was not a new item. It was just an epiphany that I had that I thought was worth raising just in regards to the capital allocation. You know, what we're doing this year is the CNCP funds, which is around 400, close to 400. The last number of years they've been spent on solar panels. And what it's allowing us to do by reallocating that to DDC and HVAC upgrades and electrical upgrades is really start to bring our energy footprint down. And the next phase of this is to start measuring it so we can start to see what are we getting the greatest value from the way we're allocating these things from a carbon neutral standpoint. But what's really nice this year is we're able to use $400,000 worth of money that's not in the AFG budget to actually drive down our footprint. And like I said, I want to start measuring it, and I've got some ideas on that I'll bring to this table in the future.
And I know Barry's probably going to talk about heat pumps, and because we had a discussion about that this morning. Eve.
And just to sort of bring the circle around, Bill, the DDCs and the 200,000 things as based off the PRISM report of recommendations at sites that we look at our electrical mechanical systems. Is that, am I on the right track there, that this is work underway based on the PRISM report?
Some of it is from the PRISM report and some of it is just because the systems are not supported anymore.
Yeah, okay,
Great.
great.
Okay, over to Barry. You're going to talk about heat pumps, Bear?
Very quickly, and so I was going to suggest that we put that money into a fund because we're going to have to convert over to heat pumps. Our CO2 production is so high that it's the only way we can go in the future with a big school like KSS or something smaller schools. So heat pumps are on the horizon.
And we'll probably talk more about those at the May meeting. So good,
Correct.
Phil? I think we got a thumbs up from Phil.
Yep, we're good.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Great
Always like
meeting.
to-
Elaine.
This, it's a funny thing, because, I've gone to so many AGMs and you have to ask 3 times for people to run for the board. So I'm going to ask 3 times. Anything else before we adjourn? Julie?
Just at the very tail end. Just, this was something I wanted to talk about. Maybe I'll talk to Ron you about it when we have a few minutes. But it did occur to me in the past, we have used as a board in terms of creating a business plan and taking that to the province. And it has been mentioned to me that if you have a substantial and meaningful business plan, then there may be opportunity for you to run into the deficit, whether they actually call that or not. But if you have a business plan that says it's going to take us 5 or 10 years to recoup the cost, and then we will actually be creating money, that's a worthwhile endeavor to take to the province. So it has occurred to me that some of these energy efficiencies, if a business plan could be created around that, and perhaps we can, I don't want to use the word deficit, but take it to the government and say, listen, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars, but after 8 years or 10 years, we'll actually be saving money. So therefore, can we take those dollars that we wouldn't receive until 8 years down the road and apply them now? So that's the kind of conversation I would like to have at some point.
Yeah, and I
And
think
just-
the beginning of the multi-year funding, and Ron may back me up on this, or he might not. The fact that we're starting to budget out for a few more years is kind of bringing us down that road, Ron.
I was just going to comment again. Yeah. There's funding out there in the sense of financing available. And certainly there are investment banks that appeal to school districts to fund whether it be electrification of white fleets or boiler upgrades and that kind of stuff, or heat pumps. There is financing available out there. Again, the ministry will just point you in their direction that basically says, take out a loan if you want to do this. And that's how they kind of look at it. It won't be the ministry funding it. It'll be through these, and offhand, I can't remember the name of the company or the finance company, but really it comes down to is there is financing available to it for these kind of applications. I've never ascribed to that kind of arrangement. As you can tell, I'm a little bit more conservative in terms of we find the funds up front to fund these things, but that's not to say that there might be an appetite for financing some of these things. And basically you take out a loan for $1 million with the understanding that over the course of the next 10 years, you're paying it back with interest, obviously. But that's generally the conversation, and that's the business plan. But absolutely more on that later as we peruse these different ideas.
Elon Musk.
Like paying interest. I don't like it. Okay, final ask for anything else before we go. We're at 11:59, so.
Not at today's rates, I can tell you.
Yeah, really. Okay, good to go then.
Not
Thanks,
mine.
folks, and we'll see you all at
See you at
policy.
Policy.
Bye now.